let's talk about fish die-offs due to heat. All right, guys. So it is late May right now, and 2 weeks ago we had the first shad die-off of the season. Water temperature was 78, 79, 81 degrees, something like that. We don't actually have a meter where it happened. But got a report from one of our club members and captains, Captain Carter Hugendown. Sent me a picture of the shad die-off in West Galveston Bay Canal. But yet we hear from social media that it happens later, late May and into June. Well, it's this time of year. We get this heat and these fish can't handle the heat. All right, so let's talk about shad die-offs, and then we're also going to talk about fish die-offs, all right? Shad. That's menhaden shad primarily. Okay, there are several shad species that live in our estuaries. Primarily, it's menhaden shad from offshore. Okay, and they spawn. Their juveniles come into our estuaries and grow up from little tiny specks. Spawned offshore, came into our estuaries, grew up from little tiny specks in our estuaries, and then they spread out through the bays. Okay. Now, here in this period of May, June, the oxygen levels can fluctuate. Why? Well, heat is one factor. Here's what caused this particular fish kill, shad die-off, is that we had a big rainstorm. This was right before the rainstorms hit the island of Galveston Island. What these rainstorms do, they'll push in, they'll wash off a lot of organic matter. What do I mean by that? I don't mean your organic groceries. It didn't rain in your refrigerator. It's organic matter. Leaf clippings, leaves, paper bags, all kinds of stuff like that. Mildew, mold, fungus that's growing in your mulch, all kinds of stuff like that. As well as increased bacteria, animal feces, anything like that. And that's not just your dog. I'm not saying, man, you guys should go around with a plastic bag and pick all that dog poop. That's what caused this fish kill anyways. No, that's not exactly what. I mean, we got coyotes, raccoon, possums, rats, mice, snakes poop. You know that? Snakes poop, owl poop, duck poop, coot poop. That's not an exhaustive list right there. All right, so we get all that stuff up on these shorelines and high marsh, and we get a rainstorm, and that stuff washes into a confined area, okay, with, in some areas, a little bit less tide flow. It creates a perfect storm for bacteria to explode because that's what they want to eat. That's one of the things they eat. So they're feeding on all this organic matter that just washed in, and there's also a fairly elevated menhaden hatch in those areas. They're starting to gravitate towards deeper areas. And the combination of the two, but mostly the biological oxygen demand from the bacteria feeding on all that organic matter, it's going to start dropping that oxygen level. And then the fish are going to be also chewing up what's remaining, and then all of a sudden you have a shad die-off. So this year, I believe it was May 7th or 8th in West Galveston Bay, water temperature 81 degrees. A far cry from what we'll hear in several weeks. Well, it's 85 degrees, it's 87 degrees. It happens every time this time of year. It's the heat. These fish can't handle the heat. Now, like I said, oxygen and lower oxygen is caused by heat, okay? One of the factors. Heat doesn't allow water to hold as much oxygen. Cooler water holds oxygen better, all right? Other factors, lack of wave action, lack of current, all right? You find a place that at night you get a drop in tide level, there's no wind, and it's already hot. What does seagrass do? Seagrass actually reverses its process. It gives off oxygen during the daytime, and at night it starts to use that oxygen out of the water column. So we have perfect storm scenarios. This is what happened in Port O'Connor last year. Is we have these perfect storm scenarios where it's already hot, super hot, and we're going to see elevated temperatures. We're going to see elevated water temperatures. We've been on a slow climb. There's no, discounting that. All right, but what I want you guys to know is it's not just because of the heat. It's not just because of the elevating temperatures. Over time, yeah, maybe we might start reaching those thresholds, but what you need to know is these fish kills due to heat and the other factors have been happening for a long time, guys. And while some people will say, well, this is widespread because it's 3 miles. If you look up and down the entire Texas coast, it's not all that widespread. It's in some back lakes of an area that doesn't get much tide current, or it could be on the north shoreline of Port O'Connor, another shallow area that when the tide gets so low in the summertime, doesn't get any tide current because it drops out a little bit lower than the exit points. The exit points have some delta buildup. And when we get those situations, tide drops out, drops too low, and all of a sudden, no wave action, seagrass reverses at night, perfect storm. And that's when we get our fish kills, all right? That's when we get our fish kills. It seems that we've gotten to a point where there's an overly patriarchal attitude towards fishing in the summertime because of the misinformation that's out there. The misinformation is, well, it's too hot. And these creatures are having trouble surviving. Even one of my club members that was listening to some of this misinformation was concerned that, and in a good way, he's a good dude, all right? I don't want to say that. All right, but his concern, like, man, I don't even know if I should be fishing for these fish. It's so hot, I don't want to kill them by fighting them. All right, so what we don't see is large areas of fish dying just because of the heat. In areas where there's good tidal exchange, good wind, all kinds of things like that, we're not seeing fish kills there unless a combination of factors come together to cause it to drop the oxygen level enough to where those fish die. All right. So something else I want to cover here is that these fish are not only hitting in the mornings at the very break of daylight. Well, if you don't get out there and get her done by the first hour, it's over. That's not true. Captain Oscar Stringle, Captain Joshua Johnson, fishing shallow midday. Myself last summer, fishing shallow midday. All right, noon, 1 o'clock. A little bit of water movement, some wave action. Catching redfish feeding. What we're finding is the redfish that are sitting on the bottom are primarily in areas where there's no tidal current. However, isn't that what we see all year long? Well, tide's not moving. Why aren't they biting? They're waiting for the tide to turn, and they're lounging. All right, they're not just on the bottom, just, oh my God, I'm going to die. I can't move. If I moved, I'm going to use my last oxygen. No, they're just like, well, there's no sense in feeding. There's no current here. No wave action. I don't have any reason to feed. Might as well wait. I'm just going to wait it out and wait on that outgoing tide at night or whenever it is. Wait for some tide movement. Some areas in the back lakes receive tide flow from 2 different directions. And if it's not a certain scenario, there won't be any water movement there. Those fish will not feed while the water is just coming up, because what happens when we get water coming from 2 different directions, there's no current. There's only fill, all right? So a lot of back lakes of Port O'Connor, some back lakes of Matagorda, not all, but some. And there's places up and down the coast just like that receive tide current from 2 different directions. It's filling, and because they're opposing each other, it's just going up, and it's still. And those fish are like, might as well just wait. Because they can wait till it starts to drop and go to one of those exits, and boom, all that bait on that flat is funneled to them, and game on. Why wouldn't you wait? I mean, aren't you going to wait on the couch and have the hamburger brought to you too, instead of having to go cook it? I'm just saying. All right, so this has been a bit of a video. I'm going to wrap this up with a conversation I had with Captain Oscar Stringle. Takeaways right now are it takes multiple factors for a fish kill to happen, both on the menhaden shad species, which is a highly sensitive species, glass minnows, and a host of other bait fish in that category are also highly oxygen sensitive. All right. Not heat sensitive, oxygen sensitive. All right. And it takes a combination of factors, and it can be a drop due to elevated biological oxygen demand because of a freshwater runoff that pushes water into it. Okay. Or it can be a combination of those factors coming together. Low water, hot, no wind, no wave action, still dead pool, and then those fish chew up that oxygen at the same time that grass is turning over and pulling oxygen out of the water. Perfect scenario. So that's the takeaway. All right. Got one last scenario. There was an East Matagorda event right after a tropical storm. We hadn't had a high water, high tide for several weeks to a month, and a lot of that organic matter, leaf litter, rat poop, all that kind of stuff built up in the flats and the shoreline. Well, the water just happened to come up high enough to wash into that, and then as the storm passed, that water receded into some back lakes. Perfect storm, right? Low water, hot, organic matter, bacteria exploded and chewed it up, okay? And combined with the fish chewing it up. But perfect scenario. Isolated events. It's not happening coast-wide. If it was only the heat, it would happen Texas coast-wide and mostly down at Port Isabel. We're almost hearing of no fish kills down in Port Isabel. Okay? So, not the heat, a combination of factors it takes to kill it. All right? Biological oxygen demand, several other factors. I covered them. Rewatch the video if you need to. All right, I'm going to wrap up with Captain Oscar Stringle. Captain Oscar Stringle is a climbing angler and captain. Get a chance to go with him.
We fished the Lower Laguna Redfish Series. It was put on by Roy Bettis down at the R&R Taco Shop down in the valley, and it's one of the biggest tournaments, if not the biggest tournament down there in the valley. 100% legit, polygraph, all artificial, no bait. So it was in a field of 25 teams.
Okay. And how many redfish did you and your team catch?
We must have called through at least 50 to 60 redfish total.
50 to 60 redfish.
But yes, sir. Between a 3-man team, we found them up shallow pre-fishing, probably in about, I want to say about ankle deep water, maybe a little bit more.
Right.
The drum were in there too thick, along with the redfish, and so were a couple of scattered trout that were, mid to upper slot range.
Right on. And talk to me, you told me a minute ago about you made a couple of casts with a certain bait, and then you switched to this other bait.
I saw right off the back, I threw, a couple of paddle tails, and the first two fish, right off the back, they just turned their nose at the bait. So I knew it wasn't pairing up for what they were searching, because we weren't seeing a lot of bait fish, but what there was a lot of shrimp. And I said, well, the only thing I had that looked like a shrimp or even close to a shrimp was a Bug's lure, the Bug's curl-tail jigs.
Yes.
And it mimics, a crab or shrimp or whatnot. So what I was doing was I would see the group of redfish, I would cast past them and just reel it right to where I thought it was going to stop right in front of them and just let it lay there. And sure enough, they were just coming by and just picking it up off the ground. It was pretty good. It was a game changer, that was for sure. It helped out a lot.
That's awesome. Now, tell me about the time of when y'all caught all those fish. Did y'all catch them all right at daylight? Or did you catch them throughout the whole period?
So, funny story is, we rewind back to pre-fishing where we found those fish. It was about 11 to 12 o'clock at noon when we found those fish, and they were up super shallow. And so when we went back on Saturday, on the day of the tournament, they were there early in the morning, but they were more prevalent there when it got later in the day, which was about 11:30, 12. I mean, they were really, really active around that time.
And you caught them at 11:30 to 12.
Yes, sir. And we could have stayed there
And it was
later.
hot. I mean, just to be clear, there wasn't like a cold front and a 20-degree drop in temperature
No,
this weekend.
no, it was damn near pushing 98 degrees. It was windy, but then the water was felt like bathtub water. Also, it was nasty.
Yeah.
But I mean, those fish, it didn't seem to bother those fish at all, and it didn't even seem to bother the trout that we had sight casted. And we did manage to sight cast a couple of trout. Just having fun on tournament day, but yeah, it was surprising. And for the rest of the field, talking to the guys, everybody was wading pretty deep, looking for deep redfish, and that's what the consensus was. That everybody was, well, it's hot, low water, they're going to be deep. It was completely opposite on the area I was fishing was completely opposite. I don't know what those things were looking for.
Absolutely. Well, it's not to say that there's not something out there, but at the same time.
No, there probably was fish. It's just that the majority of the redfish obviously were up on the flat, pretty skinny.
And feeding even in the hot, bright sunshine, heat of the day.
Yep. No clouds. They don't care. They don't care at all.
And so, what would you think is the latest fish that y'all caught in the daytime was?
I think the latest fish where we stopped fishing was about 12:30. Okay. But that was tournament day. On pre-fishing day, Thursday, that same area, we stayed there till about 1:30, 2 o'clock. So,
nice.
Until we couldn't take the heat anymore. Not it wasn't the fact that the fish couldn't take the heat. It's just Marvin and I couldn't take the heat no more, so we just packed up and left. But no, those fish were feeding, tailing, and they had humps. Their humps were out. Their backs were sticking out, and they were punching bait, shrimp, and crabs, whatever was in that mud flat. But definitely was a all day bite. Regardless of the temperatures of the water and the air, surface air temperature.
Yeah, and the brightness of the sun and the sun angle and everything. Those redfish.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they don't care.
That's right. I mean, in that area, I guess you could have a little bit of tidal current, but this was a slack tide weekend.
No, yeah, but the tidal current back there in that area I was fishing was almost non-existent. And
exactly.
If the tide comes up, it's a 3 to 4 day deal before that we get water up in that area. So
correct.
It's always a wind-driven curve in that area that I was fishing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's awesome, bro. Hey, guys, if any want to learn this area a little bit, get a good trip catching redfish or trout, sight casting during the summertime, Oscar is a hell of an outdoorsman, and he's been in our program for a couple of years now, and he's really taken it to heart and applied it, and he's being really successful. I mean, he got third in a pretty prominent tournament. So, and you guys want to get on the water and learn some more, get some more on the water time, definitely give Oscar a call and book a trip with him.
Appreciate it, Tobin.
As you can see, it takes a number of things to come together to have a fish kill, whether that's for our super oxygen-sensitive species such as menhaden and glass minnows, all the way to our predator species. You can rewatch the video to see what those factors are, but it takes more than just heat. Heat is one factor. Heat helps drop out some of that oxygen, makes it harder for the water to hold oxygen, but it takes other factors, because if you have any wind at all, any current at all, and some seagrass or other things like algae that also make oxygen, those of you in the upper coast that don't have seagrass flats anymore, do know that algae makes oxygen. Plankton in the water makes oxygen during the daylight. At night, some of that process reverses, and some of those things pull oxygen out. So do know there's a lot of things going on. It's not just the heat, guys. And if that was true, it'd be all up and down the coast. What we've seen is just in smaller areas throughout areas of the coast. And it's been happening for a long time. This isn't something new. Oh my gosh, it's the heat. It's happening more and more and more. It's getting hotter. What are we going to do next year? They're all going to die. No. Some will. There will be fish kills, as there has been fish kills for a long time previous, okay? When those factors come together, it causes a fish kill. All right, guys, hope this helps. Pass this along to a buddy. Share this to a buddy. Honestly, I don't even care if you like our videos. We know most people aren't logged into YouTube anyways. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not doing this for YouTube clicks or pennies or build a channel or anything like that. I just do it to help people. One of the ways we can help people is by combating misinformation as well as false beliefs, as well as myths that are not tested and things like that. So if you know somebody that can't get out this summertime and can't fish the mornings, maybe they work an evening shift and can't get out there till 10 a.m., it's not done. It's not over. You can catch trout and redfish during the middle of the day. So share this video, tell a friend, and let me know if I can help you. Please feel free to ask all the questions you want in the comments section, and we'll see you back here. We'll hope to start making some of these videos more often, maybe even weekly. See you soon.